to our Shaman Portal Wisdom webinar tonight. My name is Chris Thurow, and together with Itzhak Biri, I'm one of the people behind Shaman Portal. Just to give you a quick intro about Shaman Portal, we are a community space. We run a website, we run webinars, we run kind of quarterly magazine. We aim quarterly. It's more half-yearly, the Shaman Portal Quarterly Review. We have a Facebook group with over 135,000 members, and it's all for people who have an interest in shamanism to come together and share. And tonight, as part of that Shaman Portal Wisdom webinar, we are incredibly honored to have John Lockley with us. We already had several webinars in the past with John Lockley, and it's always a treat. And I know John now for 7 years, for quite a while. We met in London. We had events together in London. John is a sangoma. He's the author of a book, Leopard Warrior. He also has a 6-CD audio book, The Way of a Leopard. So you probably see our age when we're still talking about CDs. I think nowadays it's all somewhere online, but it's really a great audiobook and highly recommended. And John is one of a few international teachers who not only teach, but also do one-to-one sessions. So he's not just teaching, he's practicing still, which I think it's incredibly important. But maybe before we start, John, I hand over to you and you can add a few words about yourself and how, did you become a sangoma and what is a sangoma?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on this, and special thanks to everyone who's joined in today. So I'm a sangoma from South Africa, and a sangoma is a traditional healer, traditional shaman. And I'm from the Xhosa Nation, which is the same nation as Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu. My teacher to be, Mam Gwevu, had this dream where she said the Great Spirit came to her and said that someone from another culture was going to visit her soon, and she needed to prepare herself because she was going to train this person to become a senior sangoma like herself. And she needed to be ready for this. So the next day I came through her gate and she took one look at me and she said, yeah, I was the one that she had to train. And then she sat me down, she gave me a divination, and she spoke with great detail about the last 7 years of my life. And then she said to me, do you want to become my apprentice? Do you want to become a sangoma? And I said, what is a sangoma? And she said, a sangoma is someone who can heal people in all different ways. A sangoma is someone that the ancestors, when they work through you, then they can heal you, but also heal other people. And she said, if you accept the calling, you're going to be able to heal many people and you're going to stop being so sick. So I said, okay, that sounds like a good thing. So I said, okay, I accept the calling, to become a sangoma and to become your apprentice. So she said, wonderful. Well, tomorrow come back and I'll give you your first white beads, which will be a sign that you are my apprentice and you are a sangoma. So I said, great, thank you. So the next day I went back, she gave me the beads, and then I trained with her for 10 years. And I'm still working with her now, and it's been over 25 years. So that's in a nutshell is what happened to me in terms of my calling. Sangomas are traditional shamans from South Africa, and sangoma means people of the song, people of the drum. And the last thing I'll add is about 3 weeks into my training with her, she had a dream where her ancestors called and they said that she must name me Ucingo Wendaba. Ucingo Wendaba, they said, is my name as a sangoma. And that name means the messenger or the bridge between people and between cultures and between the spirit world and this world. Anyway, so that's in a nutshell who I am and my background as a sangoma. And over to you, Chris.
Thank you. That was basically 30 years in a nutshell, or 40 years. So thank you so much. The agenda for today, I think we start first in talking a bit about power animals and about animal totems. Then we move into the Kalahari. And then finally, we do a bit of meditation at the end where John will do some chanting, some African chanting and playing his drums. And I can just tell you, you are in for a treat because his drums just sound amazing. It's very mesmerizing to hear him drumming. When we talk about power animals, by the way, if anyone has any questions, please just put them into the chat and I can read them out later on and so forth. But we have so many people that please stay on mute. So just for housekeeping, it's much easier that way. In terms of power animal, obviously a lot of people, especially in the West, they come across shamanism through core shamanism, which is basically the Hana way of shamanism, where you start with finding your power animal. And for many people, it's basically each shaman has a power animal and you always find it in the lower world. And would be very interested, how is it in African shamanism? How is it in your sangoma teaching? Do you have a power animal? What is a power animal for you? Where do you find it?
Yes. So the answer is yes. All traditional shamans have what you call power animals. I don't know if I'd really like the word power animal. I think it's more like familiars. I like the old English term from old shamanism where you have a familiar, and a familiar is an animal that loves you and comes to you because of love. And it's a bit like domestic cats and the old culture we have in terms of witches in Europe. If I remember as a child reading the books of witches, and the witch would have a broomstick, a pointy hat, and the witch would always have a cat. And as we all know, doesn't matter how much you call a cat to come to you, a cat will only come and be with you if they love you. And I think that in itself is a very good example of you could say animal totem. An animal totem, or what we call in Xhosa an isilo, an animal spirit, approaches you based on love. So the relationship between you and animal spirit is not actually up to you. It's up to nature. So we can't control it. We can't manipulate it. What we can do as human beings is we can develop that relationship through a spirit of devotion and through a spirit of service. So what we do as sangomas, we will look at our dreams and we will look at those animals that are approaching us in our dreams. And often we will say those are ancestors or animal spirits. And we will make offerings to them. We will sing to them. We'll honor them. We'll love them. We don't tend to tell them what to do. That's the thing. We don't tell them what to do. More like we listen to them and see what guidance they have for us. So it's not a relationship based on manipulation. It's a relationship based on love and devotion. And us as the people, or you could say beings or creatures in this waking state, we have the ability to heal those in the spirit world. And when it comes to working with animal spirits, it's about how can I help you? And that builds that relationship of love. And then the spirit comes closer to you, the animal totem comes closer to you, and then they might bring their family members, or they might bring in other animal totems who they are connected to. So, for example, the lion would be connected to a pride of lions, and the lion could also be connected to the leopard and other animals, and because they are cats. And so this is, in a nutshell, the way it goes. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds amazing. I think it was very important that you said also the animal is approaching you, because I think in a way many of us in Western shamanism is or has been taught is you approach the animal. And for you, it's very interesting because you said you really wait until the animal is coming. Nature is coming to you. You get a calling. It's not, I want that and I want that. And that's probably the next question. Obviously, we have a term power animal. You said you don't like power animal. But I think in the West, quite often it's very much about the power. When you look at power animals, I think when you speak to people, 90% of the power animals are the bear, the wolf, the big snake, the eagle, or the big cat, the tiger, the lion, and so on and so forth. How is it in Africa? Do you also have predominantly the big animals, or do you also have smaller animals? Is it local animals, or do you have global animals? How does it work for you?
I think the West is obsessed with power, and I think this is part of the problem. This is part of the problem, and this is what's happening to the environment. And this is also part of the reason why I'm bringing these teachings and why I'm hosting these retreats. So what I can say is if someone has a love for a particular animal, let's say it's a lion or a leopard or a bear, and you want that animal to teach you in your dreams. Okay, that's a very, that's an honorable thing. You loving this other creature, you love the way they move, you love the way they smell or whatever it is, and you want them to become friends with you, basically. So the rule of thumb for any of us in terms of making friends and relationships, you don't go barging through someone's door, help yourself to the coffee in their house and just say, I want to be your friend. If someone does that, they will say, go, or they'll call 911. But if you knock on the door gently and just say, hi, my name is John, and this is where I'm from, and here is a gift for you. This is a gift from South Africa, and I've just moved into the area, and I just want to know, what's your name? And then that person will tell you what their name is and more than likely invite me in and have a cup of tea. So that's the rule of thumb for any relationship. You make an offering, you say hello, you introduce yourself. So we do the same thing with spirits, we do the same thing with animals. And this is what I'm going to be teaching in the Kalahari with my colleague Owen Myberg. The focus is showing people how to develop a relationship with an animal in the physical state, and that relationship is, I think, you're really beautiful, and sending a thought form or sending some words and love in your mind to that animal, and then waiting to see what happens. Waiting to see what happens, because the relationship is not just about you and me. The relationship is also about the other. It's also about that animal, whether the animal decides to come to you or not. Now, there's a wonderful story right now in the world. I don't know if any of you have heard, I'm sure you have. It's called My Octopus Teacher, and it's done by a wonderful filmmaker called Craig Foster, who happens to be a personal friend of mine. And Craig, I asked years ago, when I finished my book, Leopard Warrior, I said, Craig, I want to bring people to Africa to teach them indigenous medicine, to teach them these old ways, to show them how to work with nature the way we do. What can I do? Where can I go? And he said, John, you need to go to Botswana, and you need to work with my friend Owen Myberg, who's a well-known leopard tracker. And this is what happened to us. Now, if you look at Craig's story, he was approached by an octopus in the water, swimming around Cape Town a number of times. And that's how the relationship started. And there's a wonderful article he wrote recently in the New York Times, which you can Google search it. Just put in My Octopus Teacher. And he'll describe how the octopus approached him and took the ring off his wife and took shiny objects that were around him. And then he followed the octopus into the octopus's lair. And the relationship started. So with nature, we need to be very, very delicate and gentle and not be pushy, not be manipulative, but listen, take a step back and look at those animals that are approaching us. And sometimes those animals might be spiders. Sometimes they might be rats. Sometimes they might be mice. Sometimes they might be termites or ants. And if it happens in a particular way, it could be a sign that these animals are looking for a relationship with you, i.e., they are your animal totems. And I've got many stories around that, but I can just share one story briefly about a very close sangoma friend of mine who had an ant infestation in his house. And he lives in a rural area with a lot of material poverty, even though they are spiritually very wealthy people. His home is made from corrugated iron. They are really at the mercy of weather. So when it's windy and rainy, their homes can get washed away, actually. So it's quite serious. So one day he WhatsApped me and he said, John, he says to me in Xhosa, I'm dealing with Imbovan. Imbovan, yeah, inzima kakulu. The ants have come and they've infested my house. And I said to him, after a few like WhatsApp messages, feeling the vibe, I said to him, hey, mhlobo wam, when's it doom? I said, are you using doom? So doom is a spray that basically is an insecticide that is going to kill the ants, And my head was wrapping around what to do, how to help. And then I just thought, just be like practical and just, use the doom. And he was silent for a few messages. And then he came back to me and he said, Hayi, mhlobo wam, sinzima. He said, no, my friend, I can't do that because these are my isilos. These are my animal totems. The ancestors are coming to speak to me. I can't do that. I was so humbled by his response. It put me into a deep place of meditation. I felt embarrassed by what I said to him. And I felt deeply, deeply humbled by what he next said to me. He said to me, I need to do a ceremony, Tingo. John, I need to do a ceremony to my ancestors and to my isilos, these ant spirits. And those ceremonies, let me tell you, costed a lot of money, involved buying food and drink for the community, involved lots of singing, lots of chanting, and involved a lot of consciousness, a lot of mindfulness, and made offerings to the ants. And they did all these ceremonies. And then what did they do? They listened to the dreams. They listened to the response from the spirit world. And then what happened then? The ant infestation stopped. And what happened to him? His dreams increased. So he started dreaming about these ants and the spirits of these ants, and they no longer infested his home. So I found that a very, very beautiful story and alarming, because in the Western world, you just want to bring out the doom. You just want to kill, kill, kill. And this world is in a terrible place right now, just with our relationship between one another as human beings and our relationship between us and animals. And we need to sort it out. And one of the ways we sort it out is through being gentle and listening, being patient, and not pushing with an energy of force onto the animal world, but looking at those animals that come to us that want to develop a relationship. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was a great story, and I think a lot of teaching in that one as well, because especially for us living in the cities, it's the small animals, it's the insect that we will meet in the cities. It's the rats, it's the mice, it's the ants, the spiders. As you mentioned, we will hopefully not meet a wolf in the city. So really, yeah, looking at how nature is reaching out to you, it's a great teaching. And also with nature reaching out, when we usually talk about power animals, it's about you sit there with your drum, you go on a journey, and then you meet your power animal. When you are in the Kalahari Desert and you're tracking the animals, you go into the realm of the animal, isn't it? You're leaving your comfort zone. You're going out and really looking for the animal. You don't call it to you. You try to find the animal. So can you talk a bit about how is that process, and does it bring up any emotions? Does it heighten your senses? How is that experience?
Yes, the focus behind the retreat, Dreams and Tracking in the Kalahari, the focus behind it is to teach people indigenous African technology, indigenous African skills, i.e., African shamanism, African shamanic skills, as it pertains to inner tracking and outer tracking. So inner tracking is actually the hardest, and that's what I'm teaching. And the inner tracking involves connecting to your spirit, connecting to your dreams, to your soul, connecting to your ancestors, and connecting to your animal totems, whatever turns up from the dream time. So this is what I teach, and I do it through ceremony and through ritual and through mindfulness practices. So the whole point is to prime the person. So before the retreatant comes to the Kalahari, they would have at least had 1 or 2 meetings with me, and a group workshop or group webinar with the group before we go. And during that time, I will give some simple teachings on how they can prepare themselves for the journey. And when we arrive in the Kalahari, we start working with Alwyn Myberg, who's a well-known leopard tracker, like I said, and safari guide. Alwyn will teach how to track the animals through the sand. He'll teach the body language of animals. He will teach interspecies communication. And he'll also teach animal communication that also involves telepathy, animal telepathy, and what kinds of things you need to look out for. He'll give stories. He'll give situations that he's been in. And then we'll go onto the land and we'll practice these ways. And it often involves walking. So every morning we'll go for about a 2-hour walk. And the walking is very gentle. It's the same teaching in terms of gentleness. So it's not an endurance test. We walk in single file. And the whole idea is to listen to the sounds of the bushveld, to smell the medicinal plants, to let all your senses open and see what animals are calling you. They might be birds. They might be insects. There might be the dung beetle on the ground. The dung beetle is very sacred, very, very sacred, and it's on the ground. And the tracks of the dung beetle, the sounds of particular birds, it all paints a picture. So you can think about it as a tapestry, this beautiful tapestry that is a blank slate. And each morning is the time for us to recreate our own tapestry. As we go walking through the bushveld, we start to look and see, what is the news from the bushveld? What are the animals saying? Because we are so caught up with the world of mankind and all the war and all the stories and all the drama. But once you can start to open your senses to the animal world and watch their tracks, listen to their sounds, hear their alarm calls and when they're in danger, when they're afraid, and start to bring your mind into that animal world, you start to slow down, you start to become more compassionate and more empathic. And it creates what I'm term a portal. My whole idea behind the retreat is to create a portal inside each person. And a portal is a timeless place where you connect, as I say, to the Garden of Eden, to that place of innocence inside of you before the fall of man and mankind. And that Garden of Eden is a physical place that we've created in the Kalahari because it's one of the most untouched, unspoilt, uncivilized, unwesternized places left on planet Earth today. And when you are in that space, the sounds of the animals are so loud, the sounds of the birds are so strong, the smells are so strong, but also when you're walking through the bushveld, the strongest sound is the sound of silence. So when you're walking and you hear the sound of silence and a pin drop, and then you'll hear a bird calling, it's like a drum beat through your soul. It's a place of great innocence, great energy, great wildness. And as we walk on that ancient land, it rubs off on us and it helps us to remember our own innocence, our own connection to the divine in the dream time, our own connection to nature. And this is the tapestry that we start to create ourselves. And it's a university. The bushveld is a university. It's not an undergraduate, it's a postgraduate university. And we graduate based on how deeply we can listen. How deeply can you listen to the birds? And how carefully can you put one step in front of the other? And how carefully can you use your hands when you've had a dream and you've been instructed to help an animal? How carefully can you do that? And based on that, you graduate or not. And if you don't graduate, it just means you have to keep learning. You have to keep learning. And we always keep learning until we receive a transmission and we are baptized by the wilderness, and our senses open. And as people say, then you become telepathic or intuitive or psychic or whatever it is, but we all have these skills. So the point of these retreats and the dream I had, and this is why I approached my friend Craig Foster, before he became famous. I had a chat with him about this. I said to him, Craig, how can we bring people into the bushveld and rewild them in this particular way? And he said, just go to Botswana, chat to Awen, and everything will become clear. And that's exactly what happened. So I met up with Awen. We got on really well. And before I actually went to Botswana, Awen, we just had these WhatsApp calls. And the next thing, I had this urgent WhatsApp call from him when I was on my book tour in Montreal. And he said, I need to speak to you urgently. I said, okay. I was like, okay. So I got into the phone with him. And he said, I just spoke to Matsebe. And she said, you need to come to Botswana as soon as you can. So I said, who's Matsebe? He said, no, Matsebe, he said to me, is a leopard that I've been working with for the last 5 years. It's a wild leopard that I've been working with, and I track her into the bushveld and I sit with her and listen to her. And the other day I went into the bush, she was there, and I sat with her and I asked her, I said, tell me about this man, John Lockley. Do you think I should work with him? And she spoke to me and said, yes, and that I needed to go to Botswana as soon as possible so that she could meet me and work with me as well. Because she said, I haven't got much longer to live in this life. So that is what happened. I went to Botswana, I connected with the energy, and afterwards Awen said, okay, when you want to do this retreat? I said, well, why don't we call it Dreams and Tracking in the Kalahari? And he said, great, when do you want to start? So that's how this journey started. And there's been many dreams about animals. There's been many experiences with leopards and other animals. And it's a great journey of pilgrimage and adventure and initiation for all those people going. And with all initiation, I have to say to you, sometimes it's uncomfortable. You know, that's part of alchemy. And sometimes people have to face their shadows. And that's also part of alchemy. And I'm not going to apologize for that, because this is all part of the work. This is all part of the work, because we have to connect to those uncomfortable places inside of us, just like the animals do. And sometimes the animals are hungry. They haven't eaten. Sometimes the weather is ferocious in Botswana and the Kalahari. You know, the heat, the rain. I mean, it can be incredible. But when you look into the eyes of some of these animals and you look at their own suffering and how they endure it with such tenacity and such dignity, it's an incredible teaching. So this is part of parcel of why I'm doing this work, and why I'm so excited about it. You know, this one, on the first retreat in the Kalahari, there was this wonderful friend, one of the participants. He went to one of the Bushman elders that we were working with, and he spoke to him through a translator, and he said to him, what can we do for you? And he said, keep bringing people to the Kalahari to work with us. Keep coming to the Kalahari, because as you come and learn from us, you help us and we help you, and it gives us reason to carry on. So I thought that was very powerful. So each time I speak about these trips, this trip is a spiritual trip of great proportions. It's also a holiday for a lot of folks. But the focus of me is a strong spiritual focus because of the state of the world that we're in right now, and the opportunity people have for soul expansion and growth. You can use money to upgrade your kitchen. You can use money to upgrade your car. Or you could use the money to come on a retreat like this. And the question is, which one of these things will help expand your soul and grow your spirit? Well, of course, I feel the Kalahari is the one that's going to do it. But like everything, it all depends on us. But there's very few situations in life where we have an opportunity to expand our soul and our horizons by going to the Garden of Eden. And this is the opportunity that has been presented to people when we do these retreats.
Sounds amazing. I think you prepared a little slideshow as well to show a bit of how does a usual day look like and what can people expect to see. So maybe we can spend the next minutes to go through the slideshow and just give people a bit, a flavor of how does it look like to be in the Kalahari.
So this is the plane journey, and below us there is the Okavango. Very beautiful, and I start to get goosebumps as I come close to it. And as we start getting a little bit closer, you just see all the sand and all these trees, and it's incredible to see how much life is just in a few centimeters of sand. And this is the essence of the practice. So if you want to remember one thing that I'm saying, just think of this candle and think of this white candle. And the essence of the practice is to shine your own light and to synchronize your spirit to the spirit of nature. So aligning your spirit with the spirit of nature, in essence, that is what this practice is all about. And I will teach people how to do this. I make a shrine in the bush, and each person goes and prays in this simple way with this candle, following the light of the candle. And that's me and Owen, my friend Owen Myberg, who's an incredible tracker and safari guide, and he's helped many well-known people in Botswana. He's worked with Anna Breitenbach, the well-known animal communication lady, and also John Young, the American tracker. So that's us there in the Kalahari. And this is Matsebe. This is his beautiful leopard familiar, this beautiful leopard familiar and friend who befriended him many years ago and then came to him in the dreams and still speaks to him today from the dream time. This is Matsebe. And the name of his safari company is called Matsebe Safaris. And there's one of the most beautiful settings in the world, and that's the African sunset. It just opens your heart and lifts your spirit. And this is what we do. We go walking in the mornings for 2 hours and we watch the sand, because the sand tells a story. The sand tells a story, the wind tells a story, and all we have to do is listen. And as we follow the bushmen and the sand through the bush, they teach us how to walk with stillness. They teach us how to listen. They teach us how to walk in harmony with the wilderness around us. And the job is to follow the tracks in the sand and to listen to the tracks of your own soul. And here's a beautiful track. And this track tells a story just as we're looking at it. It says so much. The weight of the animal, how it's moving, the health of the animal. You connect with the spirit of the animal through looking at its tracks. And here we are. This is a few pictures to show you the accommodation. There's been a few folks ask me, like, what is the accommodation? So the retreat involves 7 days in the Kalahari in a beautiful lodge. This is the lodge. And then we have an optional extension in the Okavango Delta for 3 nights, and that's when we camp. But for 7 days, we are in this beautiful lodge environment. And that's where people sleep, in the lodge, in the Kalahari. So you're very comfortable. There's the beds. Beautiful space, as you can see. And this is where we have our meals, looking out over the water. They've got a water hole very close to where we have our meals, so we can see animals at any time of the day. And if you're cold, if you're hot, because the Kalahari does get can get quite hot, there's a pool that we can cool down in, which is a wonderful reprieve. And here is the Okavango Delta tent that we'll be staying in. It's very beautiful, these tents. This is what the tent looks like at night. It's quite romantic, isn't it? And that's my tent during the day for 3 days in the Okavango Delta. Absolutely incredible. The Okavango Delta is seen as one of the 7 jewels of Africa. Can you imagine that? One of the 7 jewels of Africa. And we have an opportunity to spend time there together. And part of us spending time together is sitting around the fire at night. This is us sitting around the fire in the Okavango, watching the sun go down and just visiting together and being together and listening to the sounds of the nature of the bushveld. And here is our meal in the Okavango. Very nice, very beautiful. And here we are foraging with the San Bushmen, teaching us how to look for food, how to look for medicinal plants. Incredible. And here's Krikau, one of the San elders. Incredible man, lots of dignity, very beautiful spirit. It's lovely to be with him every year. And they teach us how to make fire around from just 2 sticks in the land, how to make fire. It's such a beautiful thing to see. The art of making fire. You can't go too quickly. You have to be steady with your hands. And as we sit with the San and they teach us how to make fire, we enter a timeless world where we are all connected with our red blood as human beings. And this fulfilled a vision of mine. My vision years ago was to sit in circle with ancient and modern man to help revision and recreate our humanity. And I have to say that this is what's happening right now with these Kalahari retreats. We are sitting together, making friends, but learning from each other. And it's always the dancing that enlivens us. This is a San dance, a trance dance that opens the spirit and opens the heart. And here they're going with these ancient songs to touch the soul. And here we are, our group, given an opportunity to stretch our legs and try out the dance. And this is me and Krikau. Last year, he asked if he could take part in my shrine tent. He said, "What do you do in the shrine tent?" And I explained, and then he said, "Can I come and join you?" And I said, "Yes, of course." So he brought his whole community in, and we spent 3 hours praying together and drumming and singing. We had the Nara language, which is the San language. I spoke in Xhosa. People spoke in Afrikaans and English, Vietnamese. There was many languages. And it was really beautiful. It was the culmination of modern and ancient man and woman sitting around fire, recreating our humanity. So that's part of my vision around this Kalahari retreat. And then it's the animals, looking at the rhino who are close to extinction, but they are still surviving, and they are there around the lodge where we work. We have an opportunity every single day to track the rhino, to sit with them, to listen to them, and ask the big question, how can we help you? How can we help you? And there they are, beautiful, beautiful creatures, so ancient, so old, and so vulnerable right now. And from there, I'm shooting ahead with some of my pics to the Okavango Delta, watching a pride of lions that we are tracking through the bush on a jeep. And we saw this beautiful lioness drinking water. Such a simple action, drinking water. But when you're close to a lioness or close to a lion drinking water in the heat of the day in the Okavango, There's something sublimely beautiful and poetic in watching her drinking and moving. Such beauty. There's another image of a young Kalahari lion, quite young, like an adolescent. There's a picture of the springbuck, that team. You see great herds of springbuck in the Kalahari, teeming with life. This is the gemsbok, another animal, another antelope that we see around the lodge in the Kalahari. And here's the wild dog. Wild dog, one of the old ancestors of the domestic dog. And as you sit with a wild dog, you start to understand your own dogs. They're incredible, really, really amazing animals, these wild dogs. And in the Okavango, there's many elephants because Botswana has created a safe zone for elephants. So you have elephants coming over the border from Zambia, Zimbabwe, and wherever elephants are being poached, they feel a sanctuary in Botswana and they come in great herds. So we see many elephants and it is such a delight and it's such an honor. It's incredible to watch these huge, beautiful creatures. And there are hippos. Yes, the hippos. Hippos are one of the keystone species in the Okavango because they keep the channels open so the water can flow. And to hear the sound of a hippo is something else. I really wish all of you can hear it. It opens you on so many levels. There they are, twinkling, looking at us. And the setting sun and the sound of the baboon as they are roosting in the trees. Incredible. Here's a baboon and a mother with her young child. I was speaking to her and communicating and just sitting and watching her, and she was organizing herself as the sun was setting, organizing to feed her baby. And we saw a great herd of buffalo when we were in Okavango this year. It was amazing to see them. So many, hundreds of them. And we didn't walk. We were in a Jeep and we were driving and we crossed this road. And then in the distance, we saw this young leopard just crossing the path in the middle of the day. And it was such a blessing. And it just looked at us. And we followed it for some time. Looking into its eyes, we felt so much. And there's always elephants, like I say, in the Okavango, reminding us about our connection to nature. And if we could be 10% like an elephant in terms of our resilience, our empathy, our telepathy, I think there would be great hope for all of us to just be like the elephants a little bit. And then there's always giraffes as well. And they're beautiful giraffes. They have the largest heart in the animal kingdom because of their long necks. Sense of curiosity with the giraffe is unmistakable. And there we have the baobab tree, one of the great symbols of African shamanism. The baobab tree can live for well over 2,000 years, and this baobab tree that we visit is about 2,000 years old. And it has many life forms and lives around it that it sustains and looks after. And you can see by the base of the tree, the animals, in particular the elephant, they scrape themselves and they also eat some of the bark to sustain them through the dry months. And there was a male lion that we saw close by in that area. The midday sun, just taking it easy. We didn't see him. And it's actually Arwen that helped us find him, because he just sensed him under a bush. And there he was, minding his own business. and beautiful birds. We see incredible birds. They fly and cross across from us and in front of the Jeep as they search for insects that the Jeep throws up from its wheels. In the hornbill, amazing emblem of the bushveld, amazing totem animal. And don't ever forget the tortoise, the humble tortoise. If you have a totem animal as a tortoise, my Sangoma family would be very proud and very impressed, because the tortoise is seen as a very powerful totem animal. And there's the dung beetle. Don't ever forget about the dung beetle. They're seen as one of the wonders of the bushveld because they keep it clean and they have incredible ways of navigating with the stars. And there's the termite mound. And the termites are seen as one of the keystone species in the Okavango Delta because they help to create it with the mounds. And underneath the mound is a queen that is a few meters long, and she can live to 60 or 70 years old. She's huge, and she sustains the life of the termite mound. Incredible creatures, amazing. And there we are, having fun. This is what we do every day on the Jeep, going around the Okavango Delta. And as always, we are also following the tracks in sand because the tracks tell a story. And as we walk through the bush, we follow the tracks of our own spirit, and we let our spirit merge with the tracks in the sand. And the sound of a thunderstorm through an African savanna and the sound of lightning cracking in the distance helps to wake us up on a cellular level. Why am I alive? What is the job of a human being? So here I am in the shrine tent, welcoming you and speaking to you about this beautiful journey. And I hope you've enjoyed the slideshow, and I hope some of these teachings will be useful for you and help you to connect with your animal totems and with your spirit and with your ancestors. Thank you so much. Here we go. Over to you, Chris. Any questions?
Perfect. That was amazing. Yeah, I think there was one question before we start with the drumming. How do you select the groups? So if you bring together groups of 8 or so on, if you have multiple applicants, how do you make sure that you select the right people and create the right groups? And also, is it for people who don't want to become a Sangoma, who just want to basically experience that, or is it part of Sangoma training?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So basically, this is for anyone who wants to grow their spirit, connect to the African bush, and also connect to their own spirit, connect to your dreams, your joie de vie, your own joy. This is not a Sangoma or shamanic apprenticeship. This is not an apprenticeship. This is a training. So saying a training means anyone can do it. It's a masterclass. So it does require a certain level of concentration and dedication, but it is open to anyone and any age. The selection process is such that people, once they've seen the particulars, the price and information, then there's a button that you push to say you want to do it. And then you fill out an application form and you send it in, and then I read it. And once I accept you, then you pay your deposit, which is a small portion of the price, and it's non-refundable. And then you are all set to do the course. And we only take 8 people per retreat. So the maximum is then 16 people because we're doing 2 retreats. And the way we select people is, well, the people just fill out the application form and just talk about your journey, answer the questions, and so it's as simple as that.
I think there were some other questions around where to fly and so on. I think we can send all that information later on. So all the logistics around that and so on and so forth. There was one question which is maybe going into what we are doing now, where you said about the trance stand that the Koi did with you. So can you quickly share a bit about what that was and what you're doing there?
Well, the essence of African shamanism, whether it's the Xhosa or the Zulu or the Ndebele or the Swazi, any Southern African groups, we connect to the spirit world through the trance dance. So if you look at South America, they'll be using hallucinogenic medicine, magic mushrooms and things like that, and ayahuasca. For us in Southern Africa, we use rhythm and we use dancing and drumming and chanting. And that's how we connect to the trance state, to the spirit world. So an important part of being a sangoma is chanting and drumming to help other people connect to the dream time, the trance state. So in that image with the Bushmen, they're well known as being great trance dancers. And there's many stories around that. And I could give a whole talk on that, but they dance in a circle. And they don't use drums because they are hunter-gatherers. So they just use their feet and they use their hands clapping, and they use their voice. And they use it in a particular kind of way. And that's how they go into trance. And it can take hours. Like a trance dance can take, like 5, 10, 20 hours. It's not just like let's see it for 30 minutes. It takes a long time because you need to warm up and get the energy going and going. It's incredible, really,
Bear with us for a moment, because we are still in for a treat. In one of the images, when you saw John with the koi-san in the tent, you also saw his drum. He had it on his lap there. And the same drum that you saw on the image, you also see him traveling the world with, and he also have it next to him. And he's doing a little meditation now for us, where he's basically singing and drumming. And maybe you can say a few words of what we should do during your drumming, and then we can enjoy.
Yes, so wherever you are, close your eyes, make yourself comfortable, and start to prepare yourself to connect to your spirit. And part of that means don't have any expectations. No expectations. That's the rule. And the other rule is be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Think of the energy that starts to come around you as a blanket from the Great Mother holding you, breathing life into you. And as she breathes life into you, she loves you. I encourage you to welcome in your ancestors from your mother's side and your father's side. I encourage you to welcome in your spirit guides, wherever they may be. But the first connection is your connection to your people, your blood people. Welcome them in with a sense of equanimity, with a sense of love and peace. Welcome them in. This is your connection to nature. Welcome in your spirit guides. Welcome in your isilos, your animal totems. Welcome in Utikro Kamata, the great dreamer, the great spirit. Welcome the great one in, the dreamer of dreamers. And we say, Vulunlela, Banabadala, Vulunlela. Open the road, great ones, open the road. Vula abantu abadala. Open the road. Old ones, open the road. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Volenlela manyange, volenlela manyange, volenlela manyange, volenlela manyange, volenlela bazali bamo, volenlela bazali bamo, volenlela bazali bam, volenlela bazali bam, volenlela manyange, volenlela manyange, volenlela manyange, volenlela manyange. Volenlela bazali bami ya, volenlela bazali bami, volenlela bazali bami ya, volenlela bazali bami, volenlela manyange, volenlela manyange, volenlela manyange ya, volenlela manyange ya, volenlela manyange ya, volenlela manyange ya, volenlela manyange. Volenlela manyange, volenlela nguThixo wamo, volenlela nguThixo wamo, volenlela nguThixo wamo, volenlela nguThixo wamo, volenlela manyange ya, volenlela manyange ya, volenlela manyange ya, volenlela manyange. Siyavulelela abantu abadala chamago, siyavulelela nkulunkulu chamago, siyavulelela izinyanya chamago, masihambe vulelela. Sondela mama, sondela, siyabulela mama, sondela, chamago mama, chamago. Amandla amagqirha, amandla hi, amandla hi, amandla hi. Feeling your heartbeats, feeling your bones and your blood, feeling your connection to nature. You ask the ancient ones to help us to wake up, to see clearly, to feel clearly, to speak clearly in this world and the next. May we learn how to be good conduits and ambassadors of this planet. May we learn how we can be good custodians of planet Earth to help serve rather than take from this world. Magu, amakosi makhulu. Makube xosi, kube hele, tamaku. Thank you. Thanks everyone for taking part, and for Chris and Shaman Portal. Thank you all for listening. I hope it was helpful and interesting for you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, a wonderful evening, wonderful night, wherever you are. And yeah, we'll send out the recording and some further infos. And yeah, hope to stay in touch. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye.